All right, I'll call the Scott County Board of Adjustment meeting on March 6th to order. First thing on the agenda, has anyone had a chance to read the minutes? Not March 6th, sorry. That was the last one.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Second. All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Against likewise?
Rachel.
All right, minutes from March 6th are approved, and this is the May 1st meeting. Sorry, guys. Second thing, we need to swear in our speakers, Charlie.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody signed in to speak. You can stand, raise your right hand, please.
Have they signed in?
Do you swear or affirm the statement you're to make tonight to be the truth and the best of your information and belief? Yes. Thank you all.
All right. First application on the agenda is S 2025-05. Rick?
Okay, this first item this evening is an item of old business. We've heard it previously. It was postponed by the applicant for a little further consideration, as well as by the request of the board. It was continued so that staff could go out there, make a site visit, evaluate conditions in real life, make a determination at that time. So this is a variance request at 2101 Wood Lake Road. It is a variance request to reduce the western side yard setback from 50 feet to 7.5 feet, as well as reduce the lot width at the building line from 250 feet to approximately 210 feet to accommodate a standard 50-foot setback from the front property line. Again, we're out here in stamping ground, A1 zone, 5 acres. Initially, staff recommended denial of the reduction from 50 feet to 7.5 feet of the side yard. However, after a site evaluation, staff is recommending approval of a variance from said setback to 15 feet, as well as, we're still in support of the request for the variance of the minimum lot width. This is the parcel in question. Again, A1 zone here. Our overhead view. And I will go ahead and, talk just a little bit to it. That brush line there as it begins is actually a pretty deep depression that slopes off greatly towards the back of the lot. Once staff went out there and met with the applicant as well as his builder, we staked the house out with the help of the contractor, laid different scenarios out, evaluated what would be reasonable and would give the applicant sufficient relief from the ordinance as it stands to construct their home appropriately. When we look at granting variances, KRS statute 100.243 is very explicit in language. It's what we're beholden to. Before any variance is granted, the board must find that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. In making these finds, the board shall consider whether A, the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the vicinity or in the same zone. The strict application of said provisions of the regulation would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of their land or would create an unnecessary hardship. And the circumstances are the result of actions the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of the zoning regs from which relief is sought. And finally, the board shall deny any request for a variance arising from circumstances that are the result of willful actions or violations of the zoning regulations of the applicant. This is an updated plat provided by the surveyor that's employed by the applicant. The red square you see there, or rectangle rather, is the newly proposed location of the home. Again, it is reflective of the 50-foot setback from the front yard property line that is reflective of a typical 50-foot setback in the zone. However, this lot width minimum is not met at this point, so it does require variance. Again, staff is in support of approval of that. And again, it is also here reflective of the new 15-foot side yard setback, which again was discussed at a site visit with the applicant. This plat also does not detail it, but the state has granted the applicant an entrance directly from Wood Lake Road that will relieve them from use of the existing easement. I'll let them speak more to that if necessary. Again, just showing the topography of the general area, the lot does have considerable slope from the roadside down through a drainage ravine towards the back of the lot. All in all, staff finds that the applicant states that the proposed home would be located approximately 7.5 feet from the western property line. Again, after the site visit, staff feels that 15 feet is reasonable, while adhering to the 50-foot front yard setback. A1 zone setbacks on all sides are 50 feet. Allowing the construction of the home at the zone standard 50-foot front setback would establish a lot width of about 210 feet. The applicant has provided justification for the request. Again, we also performed a site visit. We had determined previously that a 7.5-foot side yard setback would not necessarily be appropriate as it's reflective of an urban standard in a rural zone. Conversely, allowing the construction to occur at the standard 50-foot front line setback would be reflective of every other or typical properties in the zone. And this last one, I won't beat you over the head with it. It speaks again to the site visit, so. All in all, again, staff recommends the denial of a 7.5-foot side yard setback variance. We do recommend approval of allowing the home to be constructed 15 foot from the western property line. And again, we are still in support of approval of a variance to reduce the minimum lot width to allow for a front yard setback of 50 feet on this parcel. We have predominantly the standard conditions of approval here. As they follow, again, any new entrances on the Woodlake Road, being that it's under state jurisdiction, will require approval from the state prior to creation of the entrance. Staff also recommends that if this is done, that there be a new plat created to show and record this new access. Again, and this is the property in question.
Anyone have any questions for Rhett? Not yet? All right.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to add anything?
No, I just want to thank the board for its time and thank Rhett and Holden for coming out to the property. We did stake the property, well, the corners of the proposed house out, and I think adequately proved it, so I'll stand on staff's recommendation. Thank you, everybody.
Anyone? Nope. Thank you. Is there any neighbors or anyone else who'd like to address this application? No. In that case, I guess I'll entertain a motion.
Charlie, you have any concerns or anything about it?
No, I haven't satisfied anything I might be concerned about.
Okay.
I make a recommendation to approve a 15-foot, 50-foot to 15-foot on the side variance based upon the conditions of approval on application S 2025-05.
In the 250 to 210, or?
Yeah.
Okay. He's also including the 250 to 210, he said. Yeah. He whispered that part. Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against likewise? Motion passed. All right. Next application will be S 2025-10. Thank you.
Okay, Red.
Yes, ma'am.
I need to recuse myself from this application due to my close friendship with the Quarles family, and that could possibly impact my deliberation on this application, so I need to recuse myself.
Okay, well, if you'd like to help Jay with the camera work and make sure everybody looks their
I
best.
can do that.
And we'll miss you.
Stay close. We'll need you back.
Okay, this item as well is technically an item of old business. It was a two-part request of an amendment for their conditional use permit, which they were issued previously. The board did approve previously one part of the request while asking for a continuance to consider the second part. So there were certain things that the board asked of the applicant to do, one of which supply some information in regards to the necessity for the expansion of the permit, and also to meet with neighbors to kind of discuss the conditions they expect and things that they could come to agreement upon potentially. So again, this is at 1376 Lexington Road. It's an amendment of an existing conditional use permit, US 25 South, A1 zone, just under 5 acres, and staff is still, the recommendations as you find in the report from the previous month are the same. Approval. This is the parcel in question here. A1 zone. When we consider conditional use permits, conditional uses are just that. They are those which are essential to or would promote the public health, safety, or welfare in one or more zones, but which would impair the integrity and character of the zone in which it is located or in adjoining zones, unless restrictions on location, size, extent, and character of performance are imposed, in addition to those imposed in the zoning regulation itself. Conditional uses may be permitted in districts as designated under the zoning district regulations, but only when specifically approved by the Board of Adjustment, which is yourself. These permits are subject to a minimum yearly review by staff or as necessary due to complaints, expansion of permit, similar requests, etc. In short, a conditional use permit is legal authorization to undertake a conditional use issued by the administrative official pursuant to authorization by the Board of Adjustment consisting of two parts. There needs to be a statement of factual determination made by the Board of Adjustment which justifies the issuance of the permit, and secondarily, a statement of the special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted. And these conditions are those that are determined by the board, and also based on staff recommendations that could mitigate any off-site impacts or to the general vicinity of the use. So just a little background, this is the Scott County Humane Society. They have an existing conditional use permit active at the project site addressed 1376 Lexington Road. It was initially issued in 2020 by this board. It currently allows for the operating hours of 12 to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday with no dogs to be kept overnight. Point of clarity, at the last session, the board did choose to approve the expansion of hours which were requested for special circumstances. So at this point, Ms. Barrett and Mr. Perkins, if you can clarify me for the record, that at this point the consideration is the number of dogs, if so overnight. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. So the first part of the request, again, has been approved, so we are here still this evening to consider the second portion. So this property is under a development plan process. They are undergoing an amendment currently. It is under office review at this time. It is PDP 2023-10. It has received approval, but they have not begun construction yet. This is an overview of the site plan. It's held to the front of the lot, an entrance there to the southeast corner, just off US 25. Let's see here. This actually is about expansion of hours, so we'll go through that. As it pertains to the expansion of the permit to allow housing of dogs overnight, initially the applicant has proposed the housing of a maximum of 6 dogs overnight at any time. The applicant stated that there's a growing need for temporary, short-term, and emergency overnight housing, which has led them to this request. And I'll let them speak more to this conditions that they're seeing, as the board also asked them to provide justification for the request. So at this time, staff will defer to the applicant to give you that justification, okay? And while staff does recognize that the need for temporary housing may be irregular and potentially overlap, it is not the intent of staff to recommend approval of this condition to promote that it become the primary function of this establishment. Again, that it be temporary and as needed. Again, this project site is just under 5 acres in an A1 zone. Under section 412F of our zoning ordinance, it does allow for the permissible operation of a quasi-governmental or nonprofit organization. Staff has determined that this organization falls within this use category. Again, the use itself has been previously approved. We're here to consider the expansion of said permit. Let's see. And overall, staff believes that the approval of the conditional use permit would not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare. Additionally, approval of the conditional use permit will not alter the character of the general vicinity. Again, the use itself has been permitted, so. And they are under development plan review. These conditions here are our standard conditions. Again, follow all the rules, report back to us if anything changes, etc. At the time, we also recommended that, again, overnight housing of dogs shall not become a primary function of the facility. That's item number 4 there. Failure to comply with the conditions of this permit or those as it pertain to the development plan for this facility shall also constitute review of this application. And that's all I have for you for now. I'll defer to the applicant.
I have a question for you, so I just want to verify, so you had said in the minutes from last time, I think you mentioned it already tonight, the screening and the landscaping and all of that, that's already being addressed under the planning and zoning developmental plan?
Yes, there are specific sections within our ordinance, specifically our land use and buffering ordinance, which address what is necessary and appropriate at the time. And for example, this property will be fenced in its entirety with a 6-foot tall no-climb fence. That's an ordinance that is put in place that regardless if this is an A1 zone, if it also abuts other A1 zones, being that this is a change of use from what's typically seen in an ag zone, they must buffer themselves from any adjoining other A1 properties to separate the two. There will be other VUA, which is vehicle use area, landscaping requirements that are meant to mitigate off-site impact of headlights, things of that nature. There will be additional screening for, say, dumpster enclosures, things of that nature, also up and down property lines. So that is all described in our ordinance. I'd be glad to give it to you if need be.
Just, anyone else have any questions for
I have
that?
one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just clarify again what we approved last time and what we are approving today, or looking to approve
That's all right.
today?
As stated in the minutes, last session, the board approved the extended hours for special circumstances. At this time, we're here for the consideration of the second part of the permit, which is the ability to house any, if at all, dogs overnight on a temporary basis. And this, again, the board asked the applicant to take care of a few housekeeping things, provide some justification, discuss some things with neighbors. The applicant and some neighbors met last Friday in office. The staff was glad to give them the room, the record as it existed, and be there to answer any technical questions. But essentially, it was just giving them the space to have a discussion, so.
Okay. So is that clear? The only thing we're addressing is the overnight use. Right, that's all for now then?
Thank you.
Thank you. And who is speaking for the applicant, please?
Thank you all. My name is Alex Cantrell. I'm a board member for the Scott County Humane Society. And hello again to you, Ms. Barrett and Mr. Cooper, and welcome Ms. Volk and Ms. Meadows. Just some background, because I know you all weren't here last time. The Scott County Humane Society is a volunteer-run organization, and we've got really three main goals that we serve for the communities: to have a pet food bank, having spay and neuter clinics, and is also providing reasonable and responsible adoptions for the community and for the animals themselves. And so that's the adoption part of this is really why we're making this request to house the dogs overnight. Our original request was 6. Based upon our meeting with Mr. Quarles, I believe that was last week, we have actually amended that to 4. And we can talk more about that meeting here in a little bit. Why are we asking you all to grant us this ability and make this amendment? We want to facilitate dogs in foster homes. That's the best thing for the animals. In order to do that, to have that flexibility to keep them overnight in emergency situations, last minute situations when we need to get this dog to another foster home, right? We need to call our foster, get out the Rolodex, call everybody on the foster list, and doing that would provide us some of that flexibility. There are emergencies, foster homes have children of their own, medical emergencies. Sometimes they need to temporarily bring us back a dog that we can either put into another foster home. Additionally, we have natural disasters and emergencies in here. So we submitted that letter to you all, I believe, on April 17th, outlining some more specifics. Along with that, we put in the number of return adoptions. So over the past 5 years, the Scott County Humane Society has facilitated 1,000 adoptions. There's a 5% return rate on those. And so, again, having the dogs overnight provides us with a little bit more wiggle room. Since the March 6, 2025, this board gave us a little bit of homework to do, and providing you all that data, and then also, truly having a sit-down in-person meeting with the Quarles family. As a result of that meeting, we've agreed to reduce it from 6 to 4 dogs. No dogs outside overnight. That's absolutely, we've made that clear. That was never our intention to begin with. No dogs unattended outside after operating hours. So if there ever were to be a dog out there after operating hours, it would be monitored. We will provide the Quarles with an emergency contact so that they can contact us if there are ever any issues. Additionally to that, we have agreed to be closed on holidays, and those would be all. They're listed in the letter that we wrote. We did receive Mr. Quarles' letter, and I was not present for that meeting. Ms. Ernst was, but we did make clear at that meeting that we couldn't make any firm agreements during that meeting because didn't have the authority. We'd have to take any of that back to the board. And so, in Mr. Quarles' letter, I know he had kind of insinuated there were some agreements that were made in that meeting. We would just dispute some of that.
Hold up, real quick there. So most of this letter that's not pertaining to the overnight stay, we don't need to go into that here, do we?
Okay.
I mean, we're only here to talk about the overnight portion, correct?
That is the portion that was continued from last session. The board is within its powers to consider anything beyond or just exactly what has been continued from last month. It's up to the board's deliberation. So, Mr. Williams, is that correct?
And that is correct, although a couple, three of these things. I
They've
think
already
really
conceded
kind of
to.
touch on it
Yeah.
anyway, such as contact numbers and that sort of thing, so.
And the holidays has
And
been.
holidays, so
Mhm.
I really think this is still appropriate,
So go ahead and go through the whole thing? Okay,
but not the whole thing.
yeah.
None that we've already approved,
Okay,
but just some of these things that do touch upon the
Okay.
overnight part. Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is, the only reason why we're bringing this to the board is because we believe this will help the Humane Society fulfill its mission and better serve the community and the animals that we take care of. Ms. Ernst, do you have anything else you'd like to say or anything touched on?
they should bring them back.
No, I think, so I'm Cassie Ernst, I'm the Scott County Humane Society Building Committee lead. So again, was in the meeting with Mr. Quarles and Ryan on Friday. We met for 2 hours, which was good. We talked a lot about the technical, which we thank staff for their support. A lot of things, again, that are outlined in both of our letters, I think were really compromise, right? And that was the intent, and I think that was our goal, is to be good neighbors and do our due diligence, and I think you can see that in our resubmission. So I think we thank for the board for their time, and Mr. Quarles for his time.
Well, we appreciate your fulfilling our 2 requests. Does anyone else have any questions for them at the moment? No.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I do.
You do?
I
Go ahead.
do, sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so if somebody surrenders a dog, leaves one there, and nobody's there, how do you all deal with that?
Yes, so can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay,
just
it's a great
curious.
question. So we are not an intake facility.
Okay.
Right, so that's the animal shelter for the
Okay.
county. So they're where people take, and they have to take whatever is submitted to them. So that's our process. If somebody comes to us, we send them to the county. And then our role is to pull from those counties to facilitate foster, which is why, again, this isn't a permanent condition expected, because our main process is pull from county into a foster direct. So the condition here is if it gets returned, which is part of our policy. If it doesn't work out, that's that 5% average return rate. Sometimes things happen. That is our policy to accept that animal back, whether it's a dog or a cat. The dogs is where we get into this potential gap, where if we cannot find an immediate placement, which we often do, then that puts us in do we have to take back to the shelter, put that burden back on the county, which we don't want to do, but that's where this really request is coming from.
So you will never have somebody who doesn't know that information and accidentally surrenders a dog to you guys?
I'm assuming they ask all the time,
Okay.
but we graciously tell them where they need to take them. And
Okay.
again, we work very closely with the county if we have to take them over on their behalf, if that makes sense, so.
Yeah, thank you for
that's-
clearing that up.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this?
Thank you very much. I'm Roger Quarles. I think you did have a copy of the letter I sent in. Okay, thank you. We did meet, and it was a very nice meeting. I appreciate everybody's time for doing that. I thought we had agreed to more than what they've, and I'm a little bit disadvantaged because I hadn't been provided with their response that they sent to the planning staff on Tuesday, I think they told me, or Wednesday, maybe Wednesday morning. So I'm disadvantaged. I haven't seen that. Some of the stuff I thought that we could, I don't know how we proceed if we don't write it into whatever you're going to approve or disapprove, because somehow or another we got to remember what we said. But I'll just go through there. I thought we agreed that we'd start the limit Sunday hours to begin after 1 p.m., that they wouldn't start before 1
Well,
p.m.
we had determined the hours at our last meeting. That was, we've already,
I
we
know
already
you
set
did,
those.
but that was for, it's my
Monday through
interpretation.
Sunday, 9 to 6.
I realize that, and I'm asking you now to adjust that, to not to start till after 1 p.m. on Sunday. And also, I thought the hour was probably referred to office hours rather than outside hours. Because we asked for no dogs to be outside after 4 p.m., which is kind of, you know, that's home time, instead of letting them out to 6 o'clock making noise. We agreed on the perimeter fence to be built before the highway fence is taken out. I don't think we've mentioned that, other than they said they're going to build it. I know they're going to build it because it's a requirement, but they didn't mention the timing of that. I did agree to 2 overnight visits per month instead of 6, and I thought that they had agreed to that too. But now here that it's 4. I would say that no documents were presented to us that referred to the animal control office out there. There's nothing no documentation on them that they're under any burden whatsoever that'll be relieved by this activity. They have agreed to the 24-hour contact, no activity on public holidays. I thought we'd agreed that somebody would be outside with the dogs whenever they were outside, so if they started barking. Because you know the problem with dogs is there's a dog hotel next door, and I've actually got a recording on my phone that I'd be pleased if you'd listen to that. It's 1 minute long, 1 minute. 1 minute long that I took a week ago at 3:30 in the afternoon of what we have to listen to day after day after day. But when you have dogs outside, if a dog barks, the dog next door is going to bark at it, come right back and bark, and they go back and forth a little bit. You know, that's what happens. You know that's what happens at your house. But I'm asking, you know, for a plan for them for a 0 noise goal. There should be a goal for that. Just because you get a variance to operate out in the residential areas doesn't guarantee you an allowance to produce noise that's going to cross the fence, because you can't stop it from crossing the fence. So I think that there ought to be a goal, a plan that's turned in by this group to be included in the agreement. And we've talked about some of these other things. But at the end of the day, I did ask in the letter here that they angle the driveway a little bit so as not to have headlights flashing over into the house when they come in and out after hours, because they will be after hours, because they're shifting from a part-time office in town to a 24-hour office out in this building. They tell me they're going to close their office in town, so whatever's going on in there is going to be shifted out to this building. So that very much changes the scope of the original application from 5 years ago. We were told it's going to be an occasional adoption center out there, and now it's going to be full-time out there, 24 hours, because they're going to have animals housed in this building.
I was here for the original application, and the only thing I'm seeing additional is going to be the overnight. Everything else was mentioned to some scope, and we did approve that. And just to go back to what you've said so far, if you would let me interject here, as I said, the hours are 9 to 6. Whatever may be agreed upon between y'all, that would just be up to them to concede to that, because we have approved 9 to 6 even on Sunday. As far as the perimeter fence and when they're going to breach that, that will be in the developmental plan. That's not for us to decide. That will be handled through planning and zoning. Correct me if I misspeak here, please.
If I may,
Yes.
I would just clarify that at the discretion of the board, you are allowed to create and modify conditions.
Right.
As you see necessary to mitigate offsite impacts.
Right.
And so, again, at your discretion.
Right, so the hours, if we want to, right now. I'm just kind of recapping where we were at, so some of the stuff that he has addressed. They did agree to the 24-hour contact. We've got the public holidays. You're talking about the 0 noise control with the mitigation, with the plantings and this and that. That also is in the developmental plan. So they are looking for barriers to be put up for noise control. Was there anything else that you had on
Any
that?
outside barriers might, I don't know what you conceive to be that, but, you know, if the dog is inside the building, I don't think I can hear it barking. If it's outside the building, then yeah, anybody can hear it barking. So that's where we're trying to get to here, is maybe no dogs outside after 4 o'clock. They can have their office parties up until 6 o'clock or whatever they're going to do, but just don't have dogs outside after 4, so that we don't hear the barking of those dogs, where they're barking back and forth at the dog hotel next to us and, you know, having their conversations as dogs do.
Well, I mean, they have said they will have no unattended dogs outside after operating hours. I mean, dogs will go out, but they're not going to leave them unattended, am I correct? So they shouldn't be out there barking is what I'm saying. They're not going to put them out and let them be barking.
Well, I would hope not. But
No,
I
no,
just-
they've already agreed to that.
I would just like to
yes.
have these things written into the
Yes.
agreement.
Yes.
So we can all remember what we're doing.
Yep, yeah.
But I do object to the 4 overnight visits and how we're going to monitor that. That came up at our last meeting, how we're going to monitor that. I did ask them for transparency on this. I would hope that no dog would stay there consecutively overnight, because otherwise it becomes a kennel if they're staying there multiple nights. So they shouldn't stay they should not have consecutive animals staying, the same animals staying consecutively from one night to the next. Because they've got plenty of board members, I think they said a dozen or 15 board members that they can all take it around to do this. And they have nothing right now is going on in the office in town, apparently, for overnight animals. So this will be a brand-new venture. And I'm just asking, I don't think that.
Well, the monitoring, I think, Holden, you addressed that. Well, Mr. Fleming had mentioned a couple of things in addition on our last meeting, which he had said that the 24-hour contact, which we agreed to, and he also talked about keeping a record of overnights so the staff can review them, of logging the dogs in and out. And I know personally, when I voted in approval last meeting, I was including that in mine. So if our discretion, we can add that in as a further recommendation as far as keeping the log of the dogs.
I'm going to save my cameraman in the back from having to pan back and forth. Yes, so what we called the dog log was a recommendation at the last meeting.
Right.
That condition has not been added thus far, but again, as I stated at the last meeting, staff, if you may add that. The other one that was mentioned at the last meeting, which has not been brought up tonight, is waiting 6 months after the initial certificate of occupancy is granted before those overnight stays start. Again, I believe the concerns of the neighbors and echoed by staff is as the facility is getting up and running, that might be a bit much to immediately introduce that new use, and that might be something that's better as a phased approach.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So if I understand properly, somebody's going to have the ability to monitor. I don't know if it's going to be the planning staff. I volunteered if they wanted to send me their records. I'm happy to look at it.
No, that's okay.
To see if the dog's name shows up twice in the same night. And if it doesn't, that's the end of it.
Yeah, if we have that as a condition, then the staff will oversee that
Well,
as far as enforcement
I'm just trying to
goes.
release the burden
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the staff.
No, that's what they
been-
love to do.
Well, I doubt that they need something else added to their agenda to do that, something that's, but if they have it, then that means I can have it, right?
Is that a public record once you have that or not? I don't know how that works.
Like dog HIPAA.
Is that a dog HIPAA law? Is that public or?
So this broadly falls into staff's ability to review conditional use permits on an annual basis. So depending on how that review were to take place, if staff requests them to email that document to us for a review in-house, it would become a public record. If, however, staff were to do a site visit and then view their documents on their location,
It's not public.
that would not be a public record. I personally think that the more public records we can create, the better off we're going to be for, again, making sure that we have transparency in the process.
So if it does reach a point where there has to be a public review, then we will have that as a public record and anyone can see that.
That is correct.
All right. All right.
Well, I'm not sure things are going my way here, but I would ask you to go ahead and limit the hours to starting after 1 o'clock on Sunday, so we don't have to deal with whatever noise there might be until after 1 o'clock for that. And that,
We'll discuss that in a moment.
and then no dogs be outside after 4 o'clock in the evening to eliminate that problem that may have, with dogs barking while my family is living in the house next door. I've got a nice place out there, and I've got a potential building lot that's right next door to this. And I don't think anybody has the right to do something next door to me that's going to devalue the lot next to me. It's just not, shouldn't be happening. And I don't think anybody in here would want to live next to this, not a single soul, I guess. But I have to. So anyway, I would ask you to review the letter I sent and see if you can add some of these things in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for him before he sits down? Can I, the Humane Society? Touch base on a couple of things that he mentioned, the hours starting after 1 p.m. on Sunday. Did you have that discussion, and what was your takeaway on that?
Yeah, so it was brought up in the meeting, and we invited, at first it was a question of what kind of activities on Sundays, which we deferred back to our original proposal.
Right.
The request was kind of made for, would you consider, and we said if you would like to submit something, we can take back for internal review, and to my knowledge, we did not receive that after the meeting. So it was brought up as an idea, but not formally requested in any way. So I would say we did not agree to that.
Okay, and then how about the no outside after 4? You're saying no outside after 6 unless.
Yeah, we agreed to take that back for considerations. We thought it was very relevant to the main concern, which we understood. And that's where we made an adjustment to say after operating hours, which again, I think is a pretty reasonable interpretation of that request of what we can meet for our base function, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it would be after 6, because it would be the operating hours would be all just status quo, and then after 6, you would make the adjustment.
Yeah, that's right.
Since I've got to take notes on this,
Of
if
course.
we could revisit that one.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Quarles had talked about not being outside period after 4. And it sounded like I just heard you say that you all would agree to not outside period after 6.
Unattended.
Unattended.
Okay, so he's saying not after 4 period, you're saying not after 6 unattended.
Correct.
So
If-
they would go to the restroom.
You have to take them
Of
out,
course.
but they start
Yes.
barking, you take them back in, correct?
That is the intent,
Which
yes. If
I'm
we-
assuming is why he's asking if there's gonna be somebody there all the time
Correct, yeah.
for
and
bathroom
that's-
duty.
Yeah, if we get to that condition, then obviously we want to staff appropriately. But again, as you heard right now, this is not something we are currently doing because we do not have an appropriate space to do so. So this is an expansion where we came back for this request with this new location.
And relating to the possibility of a 6-month delay, what were your feelings on that?
Do you want to answer this one? Yeah, I think it is not unreasonable. I don't think that is our base intent, right? As we said, I think we agree with staff that that's not expected to be a normal, everyday thing, because again, that's not our base goal. So I think if that's something the board wants to consider, I think we cannot disagree with that, if that makes sense.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
It looks like there's serious buffer on the diagram as well, as far as like landscaping and.
Yeah, that's gonna be the plan and developing,
Right, but I'm saying.
developmental
so
plan, they're
hopefully
putting,
that
and they
will
have to have a 6-foot
absorb
fence
some.
around
Right.
it, and they're gonna put in evergreens and, yeah.
And
Which will
on,
help the noise.
on the screen, again, like the residence is even further off towards like the far corner of where this
Right.
building location is going.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So I guess before we even consider a motion, we need to look at the additional things that have been asked. How does the staff, what do we do? Just the board? What about the dog log? What do y'all-
Yeah, we need to add that to the conditions of approval.
The dog log?
Yeah.
And then what about waiting the 6 months?
Is there doggy HIPAA?
When you say a dog log, specifically what are we requiring them to do?
Recording the dog's findings.
It's staff's intention that if a dog is being kept overnight, then that needs to be logged into a book or some other record form that staff can easily review as we conduct regular reviews of conditional use permits.
It just-
So it'll be identify the dog, identify whatever else you need to.
Yeah, relevant identifying information.
Sunday hours, Sunday hours.
Yes, yeah. And I would like to clarify too that as far as, what would be sufficient for accurate record keeping, simply a name, we don't believe would be sufficient for that. Dog's name changes. There's also no way to verify, whether that was the same dog or not. I think it'd be lots of Rexes and Charlies and all sorts of names for dogs. But yes,
Would we require photographs?
I'm for that.
no.
Okay, We're talking verification,
Yeah.
and I've got to take notes.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, staff doesn't believe photo identification would be necessary. Paw prints.
Wouldn't the owner, or whoever's responsible for the repeat have the same ID on them? The human?
If they do. I mean, we don't always know who owns these dogs, do we?
Again, relying on what the applicant has proposed, oftentimes these are coming from the animal shelter, and so that would be the owner until such time that it is adopted out.
I can't spell Fairfield.
Yeah.
You wanna do that too?
So if it is acceptable, if we can provide some template of what the information we think is relevant for somebody's approval, whether that's staff to say that's acceptable for some tracking mechanism, maybe that is a potential option, so we can get consensus before we have, and potentially that is the trigger point to say we have to have an agreeable tracking mechanism, and that could potentially allow that start of overnight if that is approved. Maybe that is a counter discussion.
Okay, make sure I got that for the notes.
Sorry.
So you would submit this template for what you propose to do, and you would not be doing overnight until that was submitted and approved?
I think that is a reasonable request if that's a condition implied by the board.
He says it's not.
I verified that. Okay, so we're going through this. Did you say no outside unattended ever, or just no outside unattended after 6? After operating hours, okay. All right, Charlie, we
Ma'am.
kind of waded through all this. Can you think of anything else that needs to be looked at or addressed, or?
Well, one thing I think we all need to keep in mind, being a conditional use permit, this is the place where we have the most discretion of any aspect of P and Z, Board of, any of these things. So if, in fact, let's assume for a moment you approve the application and you apply some conditions to it, and let's just say that after several months of review and whatever else we see that there's some things that just aren't working, it can be brought back and you could apply either different conditions or additional conditions, because the point is, these things are approvable only if sufficient conditions can be placed so that they don't become a burden, change of character and that sort of thing in the existing neighborhood. And ultimately, if you can't devise conditions sufficient to protect neighboring properties and whatnot, then the permit can be jerked away or modified downward, if you will, with less opportunity for them to do some of the things that they'd like to do. So they're all a little difficult to do because they do require hands-on, eyes-on, and so on. But the fact is, you've got more tools at your disposal than any other aspect of planning and zoning. So if you don't hit the mark precisely tonight, we can bring this thing back again and again until we get it right, or failing to ever get it right until it's revoked.
Okay,
So,
all right.
I would ask you to go ahead and put something in there for the Humane Society to come up with a plan for zero noise golf. I think that's nothing, they could write it down and then we all know what they have to go for. I could build a house right there to the south of what you're, just across the fence. And, we shouldn't have noise coming from over there that would detract away from having a house there. And that should be the goal of everybody, I would hope, that there'd be zero noise coming from something like that. I mean, this is not a household pet thing, This is something that's an ongoing business, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's not unreasonable to ask them to come up with a written goal, a written plan on how to achieve zero noise.
Do you have any ideas?
I was going to ask that question. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I'm not in the dog business, I don't have a dog, but I can tell you, I'd invite this whole group, this whole room to come out there at 3:30 in the afternoon and listen to what I have to listen to from the dog hotel. And of course, these guys are sort of paying for the sins of the dog hotel.
Yeah, I was about to say, you've
Well, I
not
know,
heard
but
any
it's the
noise
same,
from them
it's
at
the
all.
same, it's the same thing.
So there's a different
There's already.
different entity out there
Yes.
already.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I appreciate what you're saying. I actually have a neighbor who has 4 dogs.
I'm
so-
sorry.
You know, and they're closer than what you're looking at. So I
Well-
know dogs can be loud, but as far as zero noise goes, I don't think zero noise is
Well,
achievable with a
you know,
child
an
or a
occasional
dog.
bark or something is one thing. You know, and a cow makes an occasional mooing trying to get with a calf or something, and a horse might make an occasional noise. But dogs can have constant, never-ending noise.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying here. I mean, they could write up a plan and turn it in, and hopefully, it'll never be needed. But it doesn't hurt to have it written down.
I understand. Thank you.
Calving season is pretty loud,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Staff is not dog experts either.
Yeah.
I do believe, however, that the Humane Society are dog experts. And so if anybody were able to create some sort of, if not noise zero plan, a noise management plan that does discuss best practices, I believe it would be the Humane Society. And I do think in terms of mitigating for offsite effects, as well as, again, creating kind of that record, that may be a well-placed condition. Again, not with the stated goal of zero noise, but rather, again, just best practices for noise maintenance and good neighborhood. It's just something to have on record that staff could review their active policies against once a year.
Okay, so, yeah, and taking into account that they have already proposed that they will do additional planting.
Yeah.
And they are doing, controlled hours of the dogs outside, so they have proven that they are already willing in writing to do some of the things that you've asked for, sir. Okay.
I make a motion.
We got a motion going on, guys. If there's no
Is
more
there any
discussion,
questions?
go ahead, we can entertain a motion. Do you have any more questions?
I was asking who the other entity was, Central Kentucky Vet.
Yeah, the dog boarding overnight. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. Motion on S 2025-10 on the conditions of approval. We need to add the dog log to be verified, no outside unattended after hours, and limit to 4 dogs. Is there anything else we need to add to the motion?
Do we want to do those 6 months?
That's up to y'all.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessary.
You can add that?
Yeah, I'd like to add the,
Hold on a second. Tommy, could you give me your list again, and then you add to it, please?
To add the dog log to be verified, no outside unattended after hours, and to 4 dogs.
Oh, that's right, okay. Now, yes, ma'am.
I would like to add that, we talked about, once they get the certificate of occupancy, waiting 6 months until they start doing the overnights. So I'd like to add that addition.
Oh, so basically you'd be amending the motion Tommy's making.
Correct.
Well, we don't have a second yet,
Okay.
so if we get a second, well, unless you're willing to amend your motion.
Yes, I'll amend my motion to
Oh,
push
to
it.
include that?
Yes,
Okay.
All in one.
make it more simple.
And it was nobody unattended after 4, right?
No, after hours.
After 6.
After 6.
Okay, I thought he originally said 4, so I was like,
No,
I think that's
after
what you
business
requested.
hours.
okay.
All right, let me make sure I'm writing down the right thing. Now, we've got the conditions that Mr. Cooper's put on, but in addition to that, you're saying none overnight at all until 6 months after the development plan is approved? And that's correct for both?
Yes.
So are you then seconding his motion as amended?
Yes.
Because that would have his 3 things, your 1 thing, and he's changed his motion
Do
to
you
include all
have
4,
something?
so you'd be seconding that.
Ms. Chair, Mr. Perkins, the language you just used was until after the development plan is approved. Development plan has been approved. It may be the intention of the
Oh, I
board.
thought you said it was still pending.
Occupancy.
1 was still pending.
You said occupancy,
Yeah, I
right?
said-
Occupancy.
I said one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But did you say earlier that?
They're currently in the stages of review and approval because they've done an amendment. But
Okay, so, no, that's.
being
that's what I thought.
being that the application is self-driven by the applicant, there's no telling when they may be open. They could be open in 6 months and a day.
All right, so in other words, we'll just change it into the CO. They can submit their occupancy.
And then you second it. Right, so the motion has been made and seconded, correct? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. I guess that's it.
Yep, good luck.
Thank y'all.
Hopefully I'll get my notes straight by the time it gets into the actual minutes.
I think we struggled through. They're not normally like that. They're not normally like that.
What is it?
Yeah, this is one of the easy ones.
They're not normally that.
Oh, I thought you said don't ignore me. I was like,
No,
I'm
no,
not
no, no,
ignoring
no. I'm like, they're not
your
normally that
words.
difficult.
I was like, I'm not.
Okay.
I have a lot to keep up with.
Which is this? Part of this one?
Oh, thank you.
She only has 2 copies, so we have to share.
I just
All right, Janet Holland.
get back out here.
Please, can you go grab Janet somewhere?
I feel like they need to have another conversation privately. Rogers and the Humane Society.
I don't think it's gonna go any farther. They had a 2.5 hour meeting.
What?
They had a 2.5 hour meeting privately. This was the culmination of that.
Then I don't understand the lack of clarity, but
We don't need it.
okay. I understand now.
Okay. Thank y'all for bearing with us.
Ms. Chair, are you ready to proceed?
All right, we're ready to move on to the next application, whatever that number is.
Maybe.
Rhett, launch us.
Trying. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm sorry, please, I didn't get rid of the computer.
Got one more, and I cannot find the, here it is. Application S 2025-13.
Okay, this is this is the item of new business for the evening. Again, S-2025-13. This is 891 Porter Road. As far as the location goes, you take US 25 north, head west down Porter Road. It's just past, the interstate and is it Love's out there? I just know it's a Hardee's. It's out past there, out on the right-hand side. Again, this is an A1 zone. The parcel in question at this time is just over 5 acres. This is an overhead view of said parcel. It's the spade-shaped portion you see there in the middle. At one time, the concept plan, and I believe actually the plan you may have in your packet, does show a cabin or house-type structure on it on the east side of the concept. That is actually on the adjacent parcel. So for a point of clarity and for the record, that parcel to the east is not under consideration. After conversation with the applicant, it is only this 5 acres and that red highlighted area that are under consideration. Okay? Again, we spoke about conditional uses. Again, they are uses that would not normally exist or be allowable within a particular zone by right, that it's understood that they could cause off-site impacts, but it is the ability of the board to allow said uses within a zone that's unusual, as long as they place conditions upon them that will mitigate off-site impacts to a reasonable degree. Again, when you are approving a conditional use permit, there must be a statement of factual determination made by the board which justifies the issuance of the permit, and there also must be a statement of these special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted. Again, as Mr. Perkins there elucidated, that these conditions can be amended, changed, the application can be recalled for review, et cetera. Again, until we get it right. The purpose and the duty of the board is again to establish conditions that will mitigate the impacts to the surrounding area, allowing a use that is not typical for a zone. Cool. Section 412 of the ordinance lists public and private parks and recreational areas as a conditional use in the A1 zone. The concept as submitted by the applicant, staff has determined that this use does fall within this umbrella. Are you advancing the slides or me?
You're making me dizzy.
Yeah. So again, the parcel is addressed 891 Porter Road. The applicant has proposed 4 glamping yurts plus a bathhouse, restroom facility, and a playground on the campus. That's what I'll call it. The applicant has stated that each yurt will have a maximum occupancy of 5 people. They have stated there will be no hookups or other infrastructure that will cater to RV users. So typically just the folks that seek to use these campground sites. Again, as I detailed before, there is a cabin or cottage detailed on the concept. That portion of their property, which is also owned by them, is not under consideration at this time. It's just the 5-acre spade-shaped parcel I've highlighted for you earlier. I already hit on that. So, and again, an expansion of use beyond what is under consideration for this evening. If you so choose to approve the application, any expansion or alteration of the permit by the applicant, they need to come back to us and yourselves to discuss an expansion or amendment of said concept. Here is the concept as submitted by the applicant. I'll say it just one more time. I promise that's it. That cabin and that house there on the eastern side is not part of the plan. Again, the applicant has stated their plan and purpose for the issuance of this permit, being the 4 campsites you see there kind of central and west on the parcel, that bathhouse and the play area. The entrance will be a little bit west of their main home entrance, and I'll detail that in just a moment. There are some tan lines there that signify some circulation paths, et cetera. At this time, I think it's appropriate to clarify that even if the conditional use is approved this evening, this concept will be beholden to a development plan, kind of in what you saw for the Humane Society before you. Also, we do that with churches and other type uses. So this is what the use will be and be like. There will be another step that details what the use looks like and how it will function. So again, if this permit is issued, they will still have to go through a full development plan and review process, which will set design and performance standards as reviewed by the Planning Commission themselves. The applicant has stated that the site will operate 7 days a week. Ms. Holland, you only get one. They have also stated that guests will stay a minimum of 2 days, maximum of 3. The check-in time will be 3 p.m., check-out at noon. Applicant also proposes quiet hours beginning at 10 p.m. each evening and ending again at 8 a.m. the following day. The applicant has stated there will be a singular caretaker on site. However, there are no proposed additional employees at this time. The project, again, will be accessed via a state-approved entrance from Porter Road. The access actually already exists. But through the development plan process, it's anticipated that it will be improved, expanded, made suitable for said use. Again, that's a planning commission and an internal staff review process that goes through a whole separate board. Performance standards, again, any new access or improvement within the right-of-way on Porter Road, it is a state jurisdictional road. That means the state transportation cabinet will have to be involved and issue permissions as well. Again, so this project will have multiple different levels of permission to be obtained. Any access to the property for a guest will be through a secured gate requiring a passcode. Internal pathways, parking, and final location of structures will be detailed during the development plan process if this application were to be approved. All aspects of the development must adhere to the requirements set forth both in the zoning ordinance as well as the subdivision and development regulations. That red arrow there details the approximate location where the entrance will be onto the site. Again, if you were to go north and east along that, it would be about a mile or so before you got to the Loves, et cetera, things of that nature. I'll give you some more road views here in a moment. As you move west and south from the parcel, there is that curve there that goes on, continues toward the church and things that are out there, Salem, things of that nature. Conditional use permits may be issued if it's found that the impacts to the immediate vicinity created by the proposed use are able to be mitigated by the conditions recommended by staff and imposed by the board. Staff has identified the following off-site impacts that may need to be mitigated. So we did discuss the fencing and buffering with the Humane Society before. Again, this parcel in its entirety would be beholden to that agricultural screening and buffering requirement. While there is an existing tree line, et cetera, concerns have been expressed from surrounding properties that there needs to be delineation. The fact of the matter is that this property will have to be fenced off by requirement of the ordinance. Again, as it is a change of use and a use that is unexpected and untypical. That's not a word. Not typical? Non-typical? Atypical.
Atypical.
Thank you, Elise. Atypical. in the zone. So again, they would be beholden to the fencing and buffering requirement, which is a 6-foot tall no-climb fence. Any structures and vehicle use areas, including pathways, driveways, et cetera, will require certain types of landscaping. Again, like I spoke before, the Humane Society meant to mitigate light pollution and sounds and whatnot, visual aspects that travel off-site. I will say, and I'll get to this in a moment as well, that the topography of the site does kind of lend itself to be self-screened as well. Most of the property kind of falls off and goes down in the bottom. It's well below the roadway. Let's see here.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
When you say it has to be fenced according to the ordinance, you're talking about the actual development area, you're not talking about the 5-acre tract.
The way the ordinance read is the entirety of the parcel.
It's the 5-acre tract.
I don't know that there's been an occasion, because it was discussed before in other applications, that we may use the fencing to mitigate just the area of impact. Staff has not seen that there have been any waivers or variances from it being the entirety of the parcel being screened.
I just want to make sure before I wrote something down.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
See, I did not catch it, so even though they're not using this part, it has to be,
Well, when you issue a conditional use for a parcel, especially when we're talking about rural recreation and campground, things of that nature, the use permit is issued for the parcel itself.
okay.
So the parcel itself has a change of use from what is expected beyond. And to continue on to my next point, being that we're out here in an agricultural area, very rural, there are certain uses that are given by right to adjacent property owners. The right for agricultural activities, rural recreation, to include hunting, fishing, things of that nature. Residential use by right, 1 house per 5 acres. So this delineation not only would ensure the protection of said guests that may be on the property, but also retain the rights of property owners beyond the boundary. So, and again, there will be other screening requirements and things by landscaping that will all be done by the ordinance. It's over here. So, but again, that'll all be discussed in the development plan, which we have not received, or gotten to that point yet, when and if this permit is issued. So, staff also recognizes that increased commercial type activity in rural areas could cause, off-site impacts with noises traveling to and from the property. Staff has recommended that quiet hours be imposed daily from 10 until 8 p.m. to a.m. We have discussed this with the applicant. The applicant has received a full report to include the conditions of approval as recommended by staff. I'll yield to the applicant to discuss those more, but she has received the full report in itself. Staff also recommends that no generators are used by guests during these hours. The applicant has stated that all the sites are solar powered, so there should be little or no need at all for, off-site generators to be brought on. It's also to be considered that, when you put any sort of development whatsoever out in an area that, doesn't have much of any, that lighting could also be of an impact to adjacent property owners or the roadways. So we have proposed that no uplighting or unshielded lights, to include string lights, et cetera, shall be allowed as part of the development. And typically through our development plan process, whether it be, a shopping center, things of that nature, big and small, we do require what's called a photometric plan. What that is an additional sheet within our construction documents that spots each light fixture, what type it will be, and it also has a gradient shown graphically throughout the property of this light fixture should affect this distance from it, et cetera. So through the development plan process, this project would be beholden to that sort of document as well. And again, we made a site visit out there. Holden and I did. We drove out there and tooled around for some time. It was nice to see some sites out there. But again, the property is kind of well down in the bottom. That way it does yield itself to some natural screening, especially if tree lines are retained, et cetera. And of course, when we're talking about increased commercial activity in an agricultural area out on a smaller state road, it has to be considered that could be some traffic impacts to the area. Commercial activities obviously raise these concerns, and again, we did make a site visit, kind of drove the roadways forward and back. This is a state jurisdictional road, so any new activity or improvement to Porter Road would have to be approved by the state. If it's not approved by the state, it can't happen. The applicant shall direct guests to access and leave the site via the I-75 interchange at Porter Road. Now, being that this is a public road, we cannot set that as a requirement. However, staff has put a condition in there that recommends that they do provide some guest education to do so, to please exit and enter the site safely. Staff has also recommended that cautionary and directional signage should probably be placed, as you exit and enter the property, not only for the benefit of guests as they arrive and leave, but also to make motoring traffic that's not traveling to the site aware of the type and frequency of activity that may impact the roadway. During our site visit, again, Holden and I drove back and forth. We parked in the driveway of the property, looked left and right. At this time, staff believes for the level of activity that sight lines would be sufficient. Again, the applicant has proposed 4 campsites with a maximum of 5 people each. I'll let her speak more to those concerns of frequency of use and amount of traffic coming and going. There are established check-in and check-out hours. There are limitations of access by the coded gate. As such, with the acknowledgement that Porter Road is a smaller state road with some limited sight lines and areas, for the level of activities, staff has deemed it should be appropriate for the use. This is just a little more discussing the topography of the area. The closer the contour lines are there that you see, the steeper the slope. And as you can see, the slope falls away considerably from the roadside there at the south down to the darker area, which is kind of a natural green drainage area with a tree line and whatnot. There's a driveway that continues on through, and it kind of creates a natural ravine through there. Again, and it also descends from the north too. It's kind of a bowl type property. There is a slight drainage. There's a little narrow blue line that runs through there that denotes a natural drainage area. It's not a floodplain area, but these types of things will be evaluated through the development plan stage. The Planning Commission retains an engineer. That's his thing. Drainage, waterway management. He is the floodplain coordinator for the county. So any risks that need to be mitigated or engineering needs to take place to make things safe and functional be evaluated at the development plan stage at that time. That red arrow again is the proposed access point. Point of clarity, in the conditions of approval you will see staff acknowledges that there are some non-compliant structures on the property, to include the building you see there. As a condition of approval, if you so choose to approve this application, staff has recommended that any currently non-compliant structures shall be removed from the property before the permit is considered active. So again, this is Porter Road moving towards the east, towards the interstate. That red arrow there is a mailbox and an opening in the fence now. So again, it is an established access. The applicant has proposed that this be the entrance and exit from the property for the users. And this is looking westbound out towards the curve in the road that I showed you. This runs out towards Salem and, obviously Porter Church. And so again, this structure, staff recognizes it is non-compliant. Staff has recommended that it be removed as appropriate. So again, staff has been out there, kind of looked at sight lines, evaluated it. Infrastructure concerns. Obviously, when you are putting things out there that aren't there, have not been there before, especially in a rural area, you have to consider impacts to local infrastructure, specifically water, emergency services, and availability. Utility providers during the development planning process, they are part of what we call our technical review committee. They receive all copies of all applications for the month. They're brought in for a monthly roundtable where we all sit down, talk about issues that may or may not be a problem for a certain development. And to that point, if there's an issue that cannot be overcome, whether it be availability of water, provisions for fire safety, distance from emergency services, et cetera, at that point, the plan is unsupported and cannot continue on. That being said, staff has identified that there are fire hydrants, both up at Porter Road near the interstate interchange, as well as west down at Salem. Again, this is in the Scott County Fire Department jurisdiction. When and if this application was approved by this board and continued on to the development plan, both the water company as well as the Scott County Fire Department would have to sign and certify the development plan before it was ever approved. Beyond these identified concerns and the recommended conditions of approval, the board, again, is empowered to impose these conditions or more. It's for your consideration. Using the private park or using the property for a private park or recreational area within the requirements set forth by the ordinance, staff has deemed it can be appropriate and would also, promote the public health, safety, or welfare, nor alter the character of the general vicinity, provided that the conditions that we have recommended or those that you would impose in addition are undertaken. Approval of the conditional use permit will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community. Without conditions, the proposed use is likely to impair the character of the A1 zone near the project site. Staff has determined that reasonable conditions can be applied that will relieve substantially any impairment to the A1 zone near the project site, and that with these appropriate conditions, the application be approved. So bear with me. The conditions approval, as you have seen in your packet, and we've discussed essentially at length through the slides before, are somewhat lengthy. There are, I believe, 16 in addition to normally what we see. Obviously, expansion of the approved use shall constitute a review by staff and yourselves. Upon transfer or sale of this parcel, the permit becomes null and void. That's standard for all conditional use permits. These are all atypical. Well, not atypical, but ones outside of our normal base conditions that we apply for each individual permit. So these are unique to this application in particular. Any signage proposed must adhere to the standards as outlined in our sign ordinance. The applicant shall submit a development plan for review. Of course, that plan has to be reviewed and approved by, all different service providers, et cetera, before the first shovel can be turned on the site. Any new entrances, again, shall require evaluation from the State Transportation Cabinet. All structures shall be located a minimum of 50 feet from all property lines and the state right-of-way, whichever is greater. The state will evaluate and staff will through the development plan process. If at all, the right-of-way along Porter Road extends into the property, and as such, if so, the setback will begin at the edge of right-of-way into the property. And again, any currently non-compliant structures must be reviewed prior to beginning any site improvements, removed rather. Applicant shall direct guests to access and leave the site via the 75 interchange. Again, being a public road, we cannot require, but we can recommend that they provide guest education. Cautionary and directional signage, which we talked about, shall be placed at the exit of the site to inform those leaving the site of potential road hazards and to direct them towards I-75. Cautionary signage shall be placed along the frontage of the site that informs opposing traffic along Porter Road of traffic that may be entering or leaving the site. The quiet hours that we discussed before, again, are a recommended condition to begin at 10 p.m. as well as ending at 8 a.m. the next day. No generators may be used during quiet hours. No uplighting or unshielded lights, to include string lights, shall be allowed as part of the development. Again, they will be beholden to a photometric plan. No more than 4 campsites as detailed on the concept plan are allowed. Again, any expansion, whether it becomes apparent now or if so approved during the development plan process, they have to come right back again and have their conditional use permit examined for review. Let's see here. The applicant cannot advertise for or host RVs on site. Applicant shall mandate a minimum 2-night stay for guests. That just kind of promotes less traffic in and out, things of that nature. Applicant shall require all guests to register in advance and not allow walk or drive-in for registration. That, again, is a traffic control measure. And, we want everybody to be successful, so you don't really want somebody showing up to a full campsite just to be turned away. That creates unnecessary traffic coming and going. Here's the concept plan. I'll yield to the applicant unless you all have any further questions for me or staff.
I have a question. You've done
Yes,
a very
ma'am.
thorough job, a whole lot to comprehend. And I may have missed this, but what about campfires?
Staff at this time has no understanding of the intent of the applicant. I'll let them speak for that.
Okay.
But if that's an aspect that maybe need be addressed through the
Yeah.
development plan process, say if Scott County Fire Department, has concerns with that or the property in general, we'd have to discuss them at that time.
Because we had an application, I think it was last year, remember, that a guy, or he and his wife wanted to put a campsite down around Sadieville. We turned them down just because of that very thing.
They were also very deep in trees,
Yeah.
lots of brush and all that.
I'm trying to remember, did this originally,
Also,
they
the
talked
road was-
about like a
also
communal.
their road was
I
much
think
more
this
narrow
one asked
than
for communal
Porter Road.
campfire last time.
Do what, Tommy? I'm sorry.
That road was, you couldn't even hardly get a fire truck down that road.
Yeah, and the plumbing,
Telephone coverage either.
Yeah.
yeah, and they didn't have the sufficient pipes either for the water flow.
So,
They didn't have sufficient
Yeah, they didn't.
So this seems a lot like the primitive setup at the Kentucky Horse Park. Like there are different sections of the horse park. You've got electric, you've got plumbed, you've got primitive. And with the no lights and possibly fire, it's seeming a lot like that, right?
I'll let you know Monday because be out there this weekend for the first time since high school?
I'm going tomorrow. Well, that is how it's set up. I have friends that host out there annually, and I've seen that set up. But my question is, with the lighting, the bathhouse, if it's similar to what's at the horse park, you're going to need lighting. And I didn't know if there was a reason why the string lights seem to be, everything I looked up about glamping, it's bistro lights and boho vibe, and I just wondered what was the reasoning behind the no lighting?
It's not that staff recommends there not be any lights at all,
Limit the impact.
but there
I
are
mean,
standards through
that I specifically saw string lighting, so that's why I was asking, because that's pretty standard in those type of setups.
Again,
in Europe.
staff's intention was not to allow any lighting at all, dissuade any lighting, just lighting that may cause, photometric impact, typical of developments we see elsewhere. Again, I will yield to the board at their discretion to add or alter conditions, and Mr. Fleming, I believe, has something else to add as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the main intent with that, again, was to prevent any unshielded lights. As we look at potential offsite impacts, lighting is often very high on that list. Directional lighting that's improperly aimed can be a real nuisance to a neighbor next door. Nobody wants a spotlight in their window.
That's why I was asking, how close are they to somebody who's living there?
Great question. If you'll go to the...
Almost.
So you'll see the property there to the west.
She was just waiting to pull that out.
I thought I hadn't seen it yet.
This is the residence here, this is the property.
Yeah, and then head to the west.
I asked because this.
That's the nearest property there. If I had a Google map with me, I could measure that pretty quick, but it's a substantial difference. And again, as Mr. Shirley pointed out, the
Big
topography of the area puts the
Tenants.
potential campsites well below. To specifically, again, address why no string lights, staff admits string lights are super cute and meet the vibe.
The vibe, yeah.
However,
Okay.
those are unshielded lights, and it's that type of lighting that oftentimes can have that offsite impacts. If we can direct that light downward, and if we can shield it from those neighbors, we're going to mitigate that offsite impact. String lights, you buy them by the foot off of Amazon. Those are not normally, they're not as well regulated as the type of lights that we normally find in a photometric plan.
Okay, I hope everybody understands I'm not meaning Christmas lights, right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
No, it's the bistro lights, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But they're still unshielded.
Yes, right, okay.
All right, anybody else have any questions for staff? All right,
For staff.
is the applicant here?
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to give others turn to speak before I set up to the public basement.
Can we
If anyone is.
Have they signed in?
do,
We didn't, they missed the sign-in sheet, it was already
do we do the applicant first, though?
We've always done.
We need to sign in sheet.
Holden?
They gotta be
Can
sworn
we
in
go out of
too.
order with the applicant not going first?
It's your meeting.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like a,
She's gotta sign in and be sworn in.
yeah, he'll have to sign them in. Charlie, we have some, what do y'all wanna hear, the applicant first? We would prefer to hear the applicant, I'm sorry.
Is he getting the sign-in sheet?
Brett? He's,
Charlie, pay attention.
I don't, here,
Oh, it's over here.
I got you.
We ready to proceed, Rhett?
I just wondered
Ready to go?
if that was a concern.
All right, go ahead. I wasn't sure who, everybody was looking different ways. Yeah, I think so. I'll ask her. You signed in, didn't you? Were you sworn in?
No.
Okay, Charlie, we have a couple of people to be sworn in. Usually he catches them all on there.
So I can go.
Yeah, and you can always come back.
Okay. if anything, I mean, you wanna ask me, then I can directly, talk about and speak
Do you want
on,
me to wait
then
until
that'll
the
be,
signing is done?
because I think Mr. Red did a great job of explaining.
Do you plan on having campfires?
No, we have not,
Janet, she does not plan on having campfires.
no.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
even sworn in yet.
I know.
I asked him if I could.
You can't answer, it's not official.
So I'll include statements already made.
Yeah.
in the oath, too.
He was asking us to go back and change things.
Penny for your thoughts.
We can go ahead and do the sign-in, the swear-in though, can't we? Ask Charlie, can you swear him on in?
Charlie, can you go and swear them in?
She's still
Yeah,
writing.
if they can, how about everybody just real quick, throw your right hand up in the air? You swear or affirm the statement you have already made and you're gonna make to be the truth and the best of your information and belief.
Yes.
Yes, yes, thank you all.
I didn't sign that right.
You were telling me the truth. No campfires.
All right, so
No,
he wanted to do,
yes.
anything else you wanna add?
No, I just want to say, I mean, I think Mr. Red pretty much did a great job. He did his research, and I've been working on this since 2020 when the pandemic started. And so post-pandemic, I still have families and friends that would like a place to come where they feel safe and can just, get away from the city. And, it's just a family-oriented environment, and I don't think there's something wrong with that.
Did you have plans for sanitation?
Yes, I mean, my mom used to own a janitorial service, so I'm all about that. I have a type A, OCD, so, I'm gonna be all on that. I will hire the proper necessary, people to come in to take care of anything that we need to do.
Would this be porta potties, or are you gonna have restrooms to be in there?
Restrooms,
You're
we'll do
not.
restrooms.
They're not going to be compost, though, right?
No.
Okay. I had somebody ask me, and I was like, I'll ask. It's a thing.
So
Yes,
So you're gonna go with a septic system?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Have you?
I have a
already
septic,
So it's
yes.
already been per?
Yes, I have one, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that'd be part of the
Yes.
developmental plan, I'm assuming, anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
and anything else that I need to follow, I mean, I have, since day one, since getting the license, I have my license been kept them up since 2021. And, so I've been in compliant with the state and everything, so everything I need to do, I have been complying with,
And
Anyone
I saw you had other properties,
yes.
and I looked into it, and they do look very clean and very well taken care of.
Thank
Do
you.
you have consistent traffic? Like,
For visitors, or?
well, I'm asking because like the traffic is such a concern, like on like contingencies. So I just wondered, like, what is average stays?
I mean, like, I have a large family, and so when they come visit, it's like that. It's like your family's coming to visit. So, I mean, it's nothing like something to be alarmed with or alarmed about. That road stay busy. There's a lot of construction that's past me that's going on, so you may see a lot of that happening, but as far as I don't have
And I
that
heard
much.
the minimum amount of stays. What was the maximum amount of days that you could stay?
Two.
So that was the minimum and the maximum?
Well, you have a minimum of two. You have to book 2 nights to stay. And then, you can check out, or if you want to stay for a third night, that's fine. So
Because you
3
did
nights.
you stated in your application,
Yes.
3 nights was the
Yes.
max.
That's what I,
Okay.
Yes,
that's what I
yes.
thought, and
Yeah.
I was making sure.
Yes,
And I guess with five people capacity for, it's 20 people max. If everybody
Yes,
drove
yes.
separately per night, would be 20 cars.
yes, ma'am, yes.
I guess I was asking because like those people can end up being like what Florida would consider snowbirds, and like you could rebook like constant, like, you know, the same people every week, and it becomes a home, a residence.
Well,
and
she said max though.
that's why I was asking.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the
No.
question, but no, that, we definitely don't want that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
No, I'll leave you alone.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right. Does someone else like to speak upon this then? Okay.
Before we
Oh, I'm sorry.
move forward, the applicant did provide a link to a conceptual kind of rendering of the development. Would you like that shown now?
Sure,
Oh,
yes.
okay. I'm sorry.
She at least has that.
Oh, a lot in addition to your still pictures. Okay, let's see. Okay, there's the campground that she talked about.
And the illustrations are there, just kind of,
What are the circles
Just-
outside of
That's
each yard?
what I
Was
was
that,
thinking.
that wasn't a campfire, that's like
that's
seating?
what,
Seating?
yeah, that's just there for,
So they're on a deck platform?
yes, there will be, concrete platforms where they can sit out. There will be sitting area where they can go out, the campers, can sit out and just kind of enjoy. Do have activity play, for the nature's playground for the kids. So it's just kind of give them where they have a place to go and sit and watch the kids play, or, you know, whatever they desire to do. So my team had put that together,
Is that the
so,
bathhouse?
yes.
It looks similar to the horse park.
Mm-hmm. So there's no campfire.
I will not have campfires,
Okay.
no. That's just,
It's just
don't look at that. No, no.
concept.
Yeah, that's just a concept
Look
of
away from
the idea of gathering around, and, you
The
know,
vibe.
yeah.
Slow driving cars.
I cannot hear a thing you're saying.
You want her to play it again?
Do you want me to play it again? Are you good?
We're good.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
I saw where it said no RV.
All right.
Concern.
Anything else for her at this time? No? All right.
All right.
Hang tight. All right. State your name, please.
Good evening, my name's Brian Hayes. I'm a resident who lives across the road. I am also a consulting engineer that has done work in this county. It's worth me letting you know that. I have no interest on this property or the surrounding properties, or have a client that would find this, you know, in opposition. This evening, I'm really asking a series of questions. I am not speaking against it, but really a series of questions. I think staff and the applicant have addressed some of it, so as I look through my notes, I may stumble upon some and start to rehash some of the things we've already discussed. And so when I notice that, I'll try and move on. But I'm also, I am going to ask staff, I'm also going to ask our dignified parliamentarian here if he could
That's me.
expand. But really, again, I'm not speaking in opposition to it, but I do have just some questions and see if anything needs to be expanded or expounded upon further. First one is regarding the RV users. I know that's been stated about no plans to host RV users and that. How would something like that be enforced? Is that a county code enforcement? Does that fall upon county sheriff, or since it's a state highway, is it
Wouldn't you call Sam?
patrol beyond the applicant?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The primary enforcement vehicle for Board of Adjustment rulings is you, neighbors. The way this would happen is, let's assume you saw an RV out there. Then you would call staff staff would look into it. If it did in fact appear to be a violation, then they would be, invited back here. We would at least, call attention to the fact, because I think in the findings there are no RVs. So we would call attention to the fact that that's prohibited, and basically they'd be told this is your last chance to do that, or else we'll have to, take some action. Ultimately, as I explained earlier, it could result in actually a revocation of the permit.
Okay.
But not over a single, violation, but it would be.
Okay, well, thank you. Next question really has to do, I think we've already addressed this, and it's been specific enough, but it was about clarification of the entrance. I'm actually referring to, I guess, a report that was produced in early April. So if there were significant edits to this, then, okay. So I guess is the intent, the entrance will be at the 891, as you defined and all that stuff. And the development plan, I guess, will highlight that as well.
Speak up a little bit.
Sorry.
I'm still trying to take notes.
So 891 has a defined entrance already, and that entrance by the shed near the road is the intent. If the physics and the design can warrant that the state is happy with that, so. I think, I guess next comment and question has to do with the length of stay. We've mentioned a minimum of 2, a maximum of 3 is mentioned in the report. In the condition, it only states, under condition 19, it says the applicant shall mandate a minimum 2 night stay for guests. Does it matter that it doesn't say anything about 3? Does it matter?
Probably three, shouldn't it?
The conditions are what will govern. So if the idea is for a maximum, then that needs to be included in
I think that they said
Yeah,
that
well,
was in
and I'm just asking for clarification. It doesn't.
We would add
Yeah.
that if we feel it was necessary.
Yeah, it just, the report says minimum 2, maximum of 3, and then the condition says 2 minimum. The applicant has said.
That's what I was clarifying.
The
what she
applicant
wanted.
would prefer, or I think, 3 minimum or 3 maximum, but I guess my question is, why? You know, if somebody really likes the place and they want to stay 4 or 5, then so be it. But I think you brought up a good point about, I
Yeah,
guess,
we'll have-
homesteading or something to that effect, so. Okay, under staffing for the site, well, let me go back about quiet hours. Again, enforcing that, Mr. Perkins, I guess enforcing that the way you explained the prior point was enforcing it is going to be a neighbor or somebody to that effect. Is there any noise ordinance currently on the books for the county or through fiscal court?
I think they've adopted one. I'm not familiar with it. I think they have adopted one, but I couldn't begin to specify.
Yeah.
Alden, Red?
Yes, we are familiar with the Scott County's noise ordinance, however, we don't do enforcement on that. That's beyond our review.
So contrary, that may then be a deputy sheriff or something.
It still is gonna rely upon
Yeah.
neighbors and whatnot to report it. Again, I don't even know what's in it. I know the one the city worked on years ago, we had decimal levels and all sorts of things. Is that what the county ordinance has got?
It's comparatively light to the city one because of the density of a city versus the density of the county. I think it has some general things specific to certain activities, but it just kind of understands that you're gonna hear noises, people are gonna be out with farm equipment, kind of making that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's comparatively not as outlined and detailed as the city one is, but they do have a small one. Not as, sure, yeah. I would
It'd be
say so.
kind of hard to tell somebody if they're irrigating in the middle of the night to stop
It really
or
will.
something.
It really would.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why the quiet hours are on there, because that's about the best you can do, is just during this time, don't.
Sure. Well, you know, it can be a perception thing, you know. One person thinks it's noise, the other person thinks it's music and it's fine or whatever, and then you put somebody in the middle, whether it's staff or a deputy or something like that, and I can see that being an awkward situation. So I didn't know if at this time this would be a good time to better define that for all stakeholders here, so. Okay. Next question really is, the statement is made in the report that the applicant has stated there will be a singular caretaker on site during times of operation. Could the applicant explain that further on where that staff or that caretaker would stay on site?
Does she live there on site?
Yeah, do you,
You do live there.
Neighboring.
Okay, okay.
so you wouldn't want to hear stuff late at night screaming? and-
No, absolutely not. And I have children, so, I mean, no, absolutely not, you know.
Are you the caretaker then, or are you talking about somebody?
Well, I'm there to supervise whoever that I hire to take care of the property on that side,
So
yes.
you're not there, someone else will still be there.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess to drill down on that, my comment is the terminology on-site really isn't on-site. Do we need to modify?
I think that she separated that somebody else will be there to govern
Did-
on site,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Other than yourself.
Other than myself, like during normal hours of operation, like they will be there to oversee if things happen, someone would take care of that. And again, I would be there too, so.
Will they just be there to like patrol like on a golf cart, like the horse park does? Like they won't be sleeping?
Yeah,
And I think he's asking, is there a yurt for them?
No, oh no, they won't be
So-
doing on site.
Okay.
So, okay, during
I think
times
that's
of
where he's going.
operation,
Someone will be on site.
Yes.
Right?
so, well then, allow me, a time of operation, is that going to be 24 hours, or is that from 3
Just a
till?
regular normal 9 to 5.
Okay,
Like, or, I'm just saying 9 to 5, but you won't have 9
Okay.
to 5.
okay,
It's something where I know that there's somebody there to oversee if there's any issue that approaches, and they can be there to take care of it,
okay, so,
and then they can go home to their families.
so if there's an issue then, 10 o'clock at night, there won't be somebody, there won't be a caretaker on site?
No.
But you're on you're on the next parcel?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is there's going to be periods of time, potentially, where there's not a caretaker on site. Do we need to modify the condition that allows her being on the neighboring parcel? Is that acceptable? But I think what's in writing here is still missing,
Charlie,
that there's
what
going
is
to
the
be periods of
requirements on
time.
Something like that.
Well, let me just ask one question first. On the schematic that we were given,
She's right there.
as y'all said early on, that this house is not actually on this property, it's next door. Is this where you reside?
Yes, sir.
She's right
Okay.
there.
Oh, that's
So-
beautiful.
On that,
So basically, there's kind of an arbitrary line between the two of you. You're actually quite close by. Can you tell me how far you
yes,
are?
I own all of that.
Well, I understand that. But I mean, how far is your home then from these
Charlie. look.
sites?
How large is your property?
How far is
70.
it?
I'm on 10. My house is on 10.
And that's fine.
It's quite, it's good.
I thought she said it was
It's fine.
70 some acres.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
his concerns about
Sorry
not
about
having a caretaker on site, what is the,
Could we not have
Well,
a
we have no rule on that. So
Okay.
that's one of those things
Okay.
that's up to the board.
okay, that's what I thought.
If
All
it's
right.
an appropriate requirement, you need to place it.
Okay,
And if it's not, then, that'd be one of those things you can review later.
all right, I
What's
would
your-
recommend.
Staff, having heard that particular comment, agrees that that might be unclear language and would recommend that the board modify. I would add, in the prior conditional use permit that we looked at, we talked about emergency contact information.
which would be,
That would be, I think, to cover the 24/7.
Right.
contact information provided.
Yeah,
That's what I was, yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
would that make you feel more comfortable if there was a contact posted?
Yes, and again, I'm just, you know, the devil's in the details here, and I'm just looking at some of the language that was used versus, you know, I just knew that there was something lacking in the language here, and again, I don't,
That's good.
not really taking a side on that. Okay. Going on down to the fencing requirements that are established through the landscape buffer ordinance. It's been stated that the mesh fencing needs to be established on all the property lines. Does that also include the road frontage, even though across the road is another A1 parcel?
Not typically.
Wouldn't it cause you an infraction to see?
The ordinance does not necessarily specify, but I think it's implied that it's not a good idea to put 6-foot tall fence up against a roadway. However, through the development plan process, there is vehicle use area and perimeter landscaping screening requirements. So while it may not be a 6-foot tall fence, it's typically approximately 3-foot tall hedges, things of that nature, tree every 40 feet or as appropriate for sight lines. Again, that stuff is fleshed out in the development plan. That's just why the conditions kind of yield itself to that process.
Thank you, Red.
Along this same line, Red, my husband's a farmer. Has the office received any comments or concerns from surrounding farmers or
Surrounding
landowners?
property owners, yes. And I believe I've pretty well distributed the comments that I've received in writing. Staff has conducted, Ms. Hayes and friends, Mr. Hayes and I have spoke on the phone. I've met with Ms. Hayes 3 or 4 times. I forget the name of the property owner to the rear. What was that gentleman's name?
Somebody make a motion.
Is that you? Nice to meet you, sir. You know, I've had a phone call with him and an email exchange as well. He's welcome to express his concerns too. So yes, I've had some calls and questions from the immediate vicinity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Red. Any further questions that you had?
I do. Again, my purpose was to ask some questions and get a little more detail and all that stuff. In this case, I would like to make voice my opinion is I would not like to see a 6-foot fencing. If he wants, if the ordinance states, you know, a landscape buffer is appropriate, but a landscape fencing along the front. If the applicant doesn't want it, I would agree with that.
I mean, that will be not with us, that will be
Yeah,
in the
but
development plan.
yeah, I would, if it became something that the staff says, yes, it's something that we think needs to happen, I would just prefer, if the applicant didn't want to do that, I agree with the applicant in that area. Okay. I'll move on. I'll try and be a little quicker here. With the comments on no generators, I would request that we specify that a little bit more clearly, to state something to the effect of no combustion generators or no noise emitting generators. I have generators which technically are lithium batteries, large lithium batteries that I use as generators when the power goes out. But they don't emit any noise, but that's what they're called, is generators.
Well, applicants proposed no generators, so I don't think we.
But it's
really
also
need
a
to-
staff recommendation,
Yeah.
so. So if somebody brings in a generator that's a lithium battery, I would prefer to go approve that. Okay. As far as the road signage along Porter Road, I would ask that we change or add the specification that we simply meet KYTC standard signage that is along Porter Road, since that is State Route 32, and make that clarification. Okay. Regarding the any on-site septic, it's my understanding that the current existing septic system is for the benefit of the adjoining property to the east, which is 877, and that's our primary residence. That there's currently no septic or any sanitary for 891?
Once again,
So-
yeah, that would be under
Yeah.
the developmental plan, that's not for us to address.
Well, I think the comment was made earlier that,
Yeah, well-
that might be, I guess, already approved or something to that effect. I'm not sure that that
Approval
is.
that, if it were, that's the health department, that's not.
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
That's not.
So well, I'll pass on that then. Okay. Under conditions of approval, there's a statement that says, conditional use permit shall be null and void upon the transfer of ownership of the sale of this project site. Would it matter if and I don't think this is likely to occur, but if the property that she resides on now, if she was to sell that and move away, even though this stays intact, would that impact anything?
I asked that today, didn't I?
Yeah. Okay. I think other questions and comments have been addressed, so I'm done. Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Does anyone have anything in addition to that that wasn't already covered?
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Joshua Hurst. I own the adjacent property that borders Miss Salyer's on two sides. So I know it's been a few minutes in terms of time. I just want to keep it brief. As far as this issue's been going on for a couple of years. You guys, this came before the board a few years ago, and the permit was denied. Since that time, I've maintained my property next to her, and she's been operating with a sign that said Beavers Point and also Villa Point. And what we're asking for here is a conditional use permit. Conditions have to be met for this permit. So given this rural setting, and we're not just talking Sadieville, this is Porter Road, it's really rural. This is a drastic change for that community. And I don't know if you've seen the petition. Have you seen the petition? There's 47 signatures from the Porter Road, Scotts Mill, Salem Road community that have concerns about this, because this has a potential to have a negative effect on their quality of life. They live in a rural, extremely rural area for a reason. So I would ask you to consider that. And then also, the permit was denied before, but yet the applicant has still been advertising a glamp place since then, and has a sign currently now, and doesn't even have a permit. The non-compliant structure that Rhett mentioned in the pictures, a letter was sent by Whitley Keltner in 2024 of September notifying the applicant that the structure needed to be removed. It still sits there today. I mean, there's a track record of non-compliance. And if we're going to issue a conditional use permit, and there's no enforcement, basically, who knows the track record's already been established. So a few other things. We're talking 20 campers at once. What is on the adjacent property now is a lagoon. I've looked into my property. Basically, the health department told me, unless you do an extreme amount of excavation, you have to have a lagoon. Is it possible to provide sanitation for 20 people in a lagoon on 5 acres? I mean, I know that's further down.
Once
Okay.
again, yes,
Yeah.
we can't address that.
The fire hydrant was mentioned at Love's. That's 1.5 miles away. Safety. We say we're not going to have fires. People are camping. Let's see. So I just ask that you consider. Oh, also, yurt number 1. If Rhett mentioned that it's down in a hole, I think he said it 3 times. This property goes down at an extreme angle, and then it goes up to the point where, if you looked at that first picture, it comes to a triangle. That's on a hillside that raises, see the topography there. So yurt number 1 is going to be up on a hill. It's not just going to be all in a hole. So I'm asking you as an adjacent property owner, and on the behalf of other property owners in the immediate vicinity, to please deny the permit. This is too drastic of a change. It's not the place for this. there's other places you could do this. In this extreme rural area, it's gonna have a negative effect on everybody's quality of life. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board.
Appreciate your time. Does anyone have anything different, or?
I live at the adjoining property, ours reach each other. I guess my issue is, this is a family thing. It wasn't a big deal when we had, myself included, numerous 10, 12, 15 semi-trucks every single day that were coming down the road when Loves came there. Nobody had a problem with that because it brought more money in for their property. Yet, we do something for family, and everybody seems to have an issue with it. This isn't something, you can't even see it from the road. I mean, as far as the noise, I hear her girls daily. Are we saying that children having fun is noise? I mean, it's gotten to the point it's gotten ridiculous. It's uncalled for because this is something that could be good and bring in many things for the community. There's traffic on that road every day when they shut down ones past us, that they'll reroute them that way. So you can't, and 20 people, I mean, even if they did, that's 3 days. If they stayed 3 days, they're not going to drive in and out, you know.
Yeah.
So that I guess it's just gotten to the point of this is supposed to be something good for the community, for families to get together, and it's turned into something more than that. And so and like I said, I have the property, we are attached to each other. I don't really see what the issue with it would be.
Okay, I understand. All right, I think.
Your name again, please?
Monica Petrie.
That's what I thought, okay, thank you.
All right, I think, we're seeing some positive and negatives, and I don't know, Charlie?
She would like to speak.
Yes? Anything new?
It
Okay.
addresses a couple things. How do you do? My name is Linda Wailuda, Noteboom, and I live on Josephine Road, so if the crow flies, they're about less than a mile away. Okay, maybe 3/4 of a mile, because the road goes like this, and the hills go like that, all right? Where they're intending to build is down in a holler. There's no high point. It's down in a holler. So traffic on Porter Road has increased because there's so much building going down by Caney Church in that area. I mean, my goodness, they're building all sorts of places down there. When we moved here 21 years ago, there might be a car maybe every couple of hours. Now, no, it's a lot of cars. But glam camps are very people-oriented. And if you look at your art magazines, which I happen to be young enough to get one, they had a big article about glam camps and how they're beneficial to people wanting to get out back to nature, just like what they're focusing on. Is regarding the noise. The Scott County Sheriff will come out and he will vet all the people that are around. And the reason that I know this is because we've had them come over during a pig roast. And he said someone, had said something about it, but they were way over on Indian Creek. And that's far enough away, so he decided that it was okay, just kind of turn it down a bit, which was no problem. Campers will be close enough together, as you saw in the pictures, right? That if somebody is getting really loud and rambunctious, there's going to be talk. Someone's going to walk over and go, please don't do that, because that's what campers are. They don't sit tight. They're there to relax and enjoy. And they're non-confrontational, but that's what they have to say. The 9 to 5, the daytime staff person will be the one intaking the campers and getting them out of there. So the nighttime, the overnight, the emergency contact, she's right there.
Yeah.
And whoever else is there, so it's.
We covered that, yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like the fencing, I don't know anything about that, so I can't review that, but.
Well, that's a
anyway.
requirement outside of us.
Right, exactly. So that's basically all I wanted to just say was, and there used to be a grocery store there. Penn, I don't know if you all knew Sam Penn. You probably do, because you're young enough.
Young enough, listen to that, I like that.
Hey, Charlie, you've been around a long time. Anyway, and now they've got a new big red barn that's been built, and they changed out, there was a
Oh, picky.
And I don't know what they're gonna build there. I don't know what's gonna be there. Somebody says it's gonna be a business of some sort. So it's not that the area is changing for the worst. I think the area may be changing for the better.
Okay.
And this is down, and it should be a good thing, I think, personally.
Right.
And I love the idea of what Brian had some tremendous input, and so I think
Thank you.
we can all work. Bye.
Thank you. All right. Charlie? Can we call for a motion now, or?
Have whatever discussion.
Do
All right.
you have anything to add that might be beneficial to our decisions?
I think staff has covered it. The thing that jumps into my mind is, frankly, it's really irrelevant. And that is any thought as to whether is this really a good location for this kind of use. That's really not our call. Our call is, if it fits in the ordinance, staff has already told us that it does, and are there conditions that would need to be put in place in order to, to protect the neighborhood and so on? And that's really our call. And if there are, and it can be done with adequate protections, and with keeping it in mind that we can always come back if in fact we need to do other things, then that's perhaps the direction we need to discuss it. If in fact we can't do anything, for whatever reason to protect the neighborhood, be it traffic, be it whatever, well, then we need to talk about that and see if we can address it or we can't. It seems like staff has covered that. I've never seen 20 conditions of approval before.
That's a
Well,
lot.
just wait, Mr. Perkins.
Oh, we got more coming. Anyway, so otherwise, no, I think what we've got is this is a conditional use under the ordinance. And so if it is going to adversely impact the area, we can't do anything about that, and it's not sufficiently beneficial, then fine, you can turn it down. It is in there if it is in fact a beneficial use, and we can condition the impact, then it would be appropriate to do that.
Well, I mean, I'd just like to say, I think it's been referenced that we've heard this before several different times, and I know I've had concerns about it being a fit use for the area. This time around, we do have more conditions that have been added, so that is helpful.
If it pleases the chair and the rest of the board, Mr. Perkins, due to some very good input, both from surrounding citizens and things and discussion among staff in relation to signage, and of course, this would kind of tie into the development plan stuff if you also chose to vote to approve it. Staff finds it that it would be beneficial to add, y'all could either combine this as one condition or separate it into two. That we did mention, the roadside signage before, and maybe you could amend said condition that's the, for the oncoming or the off-site traffic, that being that it is a state jurisdictional road, that the transportation cabinet be consulted and the signage be done to their standards. Maybe that language could be clarified. That kind of also will tie into the development plan and also make sure that the applicant understands, can't just go out there and throw up a temporary sign right at the roadside. There are right-of-way concerns, things of that nature. Maybe the transportation cabinet could advise them in that regard.
Which number was that one?
Oh, gosh.
8 is the new, 8 is the
That's new entrances, but the
Yeah.
Signage
signs,
on 6.
6.
we have several signages.
As far as off-site would be 13.
13, okay, 12 and 13 is what I was wondering. All right, and that's the one
12
you're
is
saying.
12 is for on-site,
Okay.
and the next
So you're saying
idea-
KYTC involved in 13?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you may choose, instead of adding, because Mr. Perkins, I guess, wants to stay at a nice round even number. Actually, no, I'm sorry, probably not going to stay that way. So it also would be advisable by staff determination that if you do so choose to approve this application, again, to make things shake hands a little better, we do things what are called a sign master plan as part of development plans. We do them even for, the big box shopping centers. It may be advisable, if you also choose, to impose a condition that a sign master plan must be submitted through the development plan process. And what that does is it gives us the whole ball of wax and just make sure that everybody's on the same page make sure the signage is appropriate, make sure it's clear, and make sure that it's agreeable by the ordinance and for its purpose. Mr. Perkins, do you have comment?
Well, I'm just wondering, I can't really imagine, and master plan implies, a significant number of signs. I can't imagine there even being a significant number of signs.
Unless Ms. Ketz has some clarification there.
So, the intention, is we kind of discussed it internally, was the directional signage, any wall signage, any freestanding flag signage, like the the A1 zone, has several sign types. And staff believes that it is best to understand what the sign types would be that are going to be on the property that would be installed as part of the development, be understood when the preliminary development plan is reviewed, by pertinent boards. So,
Yeah.
even if it's not that many signs, at least having a document that identifies there's only one is, pertinent to this.
The intent isn't necessarily to be more restrictive, it's just to make sure, to be frank, staff has a lot on their hands sometimes when we get individual sign variances repeatedly through the process of a development. Again, this is just be an extra bundle that makes it easier for both staff and the applicant. Yes, that way we just all know we're all on the same page, whether it be one sign or 4 or 5. The applicant may want to put a sign on the bathhouse or directional signage there within. There are certain allowances within the ordinance that are appropriate or inappropriate. This just puts it all out in the open, all in one ball of wax. Yes, sir. Thank you. Ms. Ketz, I see you've got an item 21 here potentially noted about caretaker.
Oh, I thought 21 would be the master sign plan.
Well, you can also amend number 12 to say, the on-site stuff.
Yeah, 21 contact number, 22 no campfires.
Oh, yeah, no campfires. Okay.
There you go, even number.
Now, please understand that this is the board's discretion. You're more than welcome to say, Rhett, please sit down, we've got this.
Sit down.
And frankly, sometimes maybe I wish you would. So we have mentioned that, again, no campfires. And also, there is an item that you all may want to address of a 24/7 contact info for either the caretaker on-site or off-site personnel. I believe that would be an addition. Yeah, I don't believe it was addressed at all in the conditions of approval, to be honest with you.
All right.
Yes, recap.
No, I think we got 22 conditions, right? Is that correct?
One question on the contact info. That would be for the owner as well as whoever the on-site caretaker would be?
Well, I think we were talking about the 24-hour contact just for after hours, after your caretaker went home, then they would need to be able to get in touch with
someone
her.
across the road contact the caretaker if they don't have contact info?
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I wrote that down, contact number.
During operating hours, after operating hours.
Okay, thank you. Please, if you'd like to provide some input, yes. This is the part where you say, Rhett, sit down.
Rhett, sit down.
Okay, thank you.
I think I already said that. I already said that 3 times and you didn't sit.
Good
All right.
job, Brett. You did a good job presenting that. A lot of info.
All right, Charlie, anything else, or should I entertain a motion? I'm gonna entertain a motion.
Go ahead, make the motion.
I'm entertaining a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we, approve the application with the, I think now 22.
23, I
Yeah,
think.
I know, the campfire one, I think it's 23.
Yes.
We're amending 13, right, to add the KYTC.
Yeah, DOT, right?
Yep, we're adding a master sign plan. as a part of
I've got
the
that as
development plan.
21.
Okay, yep, I got that as 21, then 22 I had as no campfires.
Yes,
And then 23 is the 24/7 contact information.
yes, agreed.
All right,
I'll
I'll
second
second.
that. Okay.
I'm sorry, good thought. Okay.
All right, so we've had a motion's been made, we've had a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, aye. Motion carries.
I was
I voted
scribbling.
against it.
Oh, so it's 4-1? Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all very much for your time. Sorry it's been such a long meeting. Make a motion to adjourn. Tommy, seconded it. I made a motion, Tommy seconded it.
I didn't have a headache and I just couldn't.